Okay. All right. Welcome to the live stream. This is going to be kind of like my first time doing a structured one. Usually it's kind of ad hoc and I'm just working on a project. And today, I've just decided, hey, I kind of want to do something productive in my project, but I also want to describe something that I've been kind of studying over the last couple weeks. And that is the topic of options versus composition in Vue. I was always kind of an options guy for the last, like ever since composition was announced. I was like, why would you ever switch? Because, again, right here where we're looking at is actually the option API, the classic API that Vue came out with. It just seems so straightforward to me. And I think it lends itself to how easy it is to pick up Vue. So one of the big benefits of the option API in my eyes is easy to learn. Like it's easier to learn and it makes more sense like structure wise. Hey Ethan in the chat. Long time no talk, long time no see on this live stream. I haven't streamed in a while, but I did get back into it this week. So thanks for coming in. And yeah, so I'll talk about it. Let's see where you land after the discussion. I'm hoping that I'm going to slightly change your mind in the sense that how I changed my mind. So again, the composition, like this is the option API, classic Vue, Vue 2, fully supported, Vue 3 also fully supported. There was this big, debacle when the initial release candidate or something like that, the initial idea was released for the composition API, and everyone kind of brought out the pitchforks against Evan You, the creator of Vue, and said like, we know the option API. We don't want to have to migrate everything right away. Like this is ridiculous. And eventually it was kind of, said that, there was never really full intention of completely removing the option API. It was always going to be like a migration, like an intermediary step. So yeah, this is, hey Nerdism, what's up to the chat? So it was always like that intent of like, let's leave option API in now, and then let's add composition API as an option, and you're able to kind of use both at the same time and see which one you like, which I think was a brilliant idea, rather than just ripping the rug under the people that were using the option API and forcing them to have to migrate massive code bases. You can actually migrate fairly effortlessly. I will talk about a migration. Like I'm working on a migration guide from Vue 2 to Vue 3 right now, and there are a few intricacies where you do have to put in some work, but it's not crazy, right? And when you do get everything migrated, you can still use almost everything that you used in Vue 2 in Vue 3. Plus, you get all the bonus features of what Vue 3 offers and stuff like that, and obviously the maintainability, the security, and stuff like that having an updated framework offers you. So in this sense, that's kind of the discussion today is like, when do you start that migration from the option API to the composition? Because I still think even if you're hesitant, you should at least give it a shot, because there are some things that kind of click a little bit better once you actually start doing it. So again, I'm just going to quickly go through this documentation, just like show you a couple examples, and then we're actually going to go to my code base that I've been working on for the weekly growth goals application. And we're going to convert one of my components, or maybe two, depending on how much time I have, from option, because that's what I wrote it in, to composition. I've already converted, I think, one or two of my components, so I have an idea of how I'm going to do it for the rest of them, but I'm still going to run into issues. I'm still going to have to Google it. I'm still going to have to do the regular things that I always have to do in these live streams, so you can kind of follow along with me as I hopefully successfully struggle through everything. That's the coin of phrase that I'm going to take. So again, option API, very classical, very, very readable. So, you have your methods, you have your separate watch, what variables you want to watch, what you want to do with those watch variables, what variables are computed, and what variables you'd like to return to make sure that they're all usable across all your life cycles and also in your template. So that it's very deliberate, very componentized, like very, separated structure between them. Now, when you take a look at this kind of quick example, what they're trying to say here, they're saying that for certain functionalities, every color represents like a functionality here, right? And in the option API, what you have to do is you kind of have to like if you have a computed variable that also ties into your methods, you separate those functionalities out into completely separate chunks. And it turns out looking like this. And when the component becomes large, it can become a little bit unruly, especially if you're working with a team, especially if you're working with an older code base and stuff like that, because you're like, okay, well, I'm working on this part, like I'm working on the first initial functionality, and half of it is tied into the computed variables or something like that. So I have to go and jump down to the computed spot, finish this, go back to this, get the computed variable in here the way I want to use it, and vice versa. So you're constantly kind of jumping between one and the other. What the composition API allows you to do is write everything inside of one large setup function. And that means you can kind of combine your, that's awesome. You can kind of combine your lifecycle events all in one function and be jumping back and forth with it and try to kind of get a cohesion to your code rather than jumping around from one section to another to work on the same kind of piece of functionality. You're actually able to break it out and put it into complete and reusable sections of code within your setup function. The intention of this is not to make your setup function massive, because I know that was like the first initial thought that I had. The intention of this is actually to break out some of your functionality into separate files, separate JavaScript files that you're able to import in and just use the functionality that you export out of them inside of your setup variable. So you can actually theoretically keep your setup very clean while still maintaining the same level of functionality and readability as you would with the actually even better readability as you would with the option API, right? So that's the idea of it. It can get a little bit hairy if you're, importing a bunch of stuff and using it all over the place. I find myself kind of have a balanced approach. If the file does get too large, I'll start, taking functions out, putting them into separate files and bringing them in as I need them. But if the file is small enough, I'll write my functions right in the setup, and I'll kind of use them as I need them in that setup. And for me, it still seems more readable in a sense than the composition the option API. I'm probably going to get them mixed up here and there. So that's one of the benefits. The other benefits that the Vue composition API gives is I believe it actually renders the package a lot smaller, because you don't have to separate. The Vue composition API functionality is a lot more compact, and it's a lot more componentized. So when you're actually instead of using all of Vue and all of their lifecycle events, you're actually only using the ones that you need. And I'll show you what I mean by that. You actually have to import the exact life cycles that you need and the exact Vue functionality that you need into every component. So again, it's that deliberate effect of using the option API. And hey Ed in the chat, what's up? That's awesome that you're going through Vue.js in the fall. It's good that schools are actually teaching Vue.js, like new reactive technologies, because when I was going through school, like we're talking, it wasn't that long ago, but still, like we were not learning any sort of new technology, any sort of new, especially not any sort of new web development technology. Usually what I hear is people are learning like jQuery or Angular or Ruby on Rails, which is a little bit old now, still usable and still definitely valuable, but hardly ever have I heard of anyone using Vue, so that's awesome. But with that being said, I don't want to spend too much time on the documentation that you can check out yourselves. Again, it's just Vue. It's just the Vue 3 website. I'm a big proponent of learning how to read documentation from the creators of the frameworks that you're using, because it'll save you a lot of having to like figure out what to Google and stuff like that. Hey, that's awesome. Yeah. PHP is old tech, but it's still being used all over the place. Laravel is a big framework that's built on top of PHP that's considered to be still very usable and very kind of modern, and has a big market share. It's one of the highest like starred things on GitHub, I believe. So it's good that you at least know PHP. But okay, so let's move into one of the components that we're going to be migrating from the option to the composition API. And I'll kind of talk my way through it as we're going into it. So as you can see here, this is very obviously in the option API. As soon as you see kind of data, components like separate structure like this, that that's going to be the option API. I'll show you an example of what one of my components that I integrated into composition. This is what it looks like. It's a little bit like from my eye, at first, it's a little bit more confusing because, again, I'm used to the option API. So I'm definitely, in a sense, more used to reading it, and I'm more comfortable with it. But once you kind of read through this, it makes a little bit more sense. Like I've created an init function, and I have a computed variable here, all in one kind of block, and then on mounted, that's another lifecycle event that I've imported from Vue. I run the init function, and that's really all that's happening here. And then there's this return to signify that I want to use one of the functions that I've created, or one of the variables that I've created inside of my template, and that's all it is right there. So again, that refresh key goal, this return just signifies that I want to use it inside of my template. If I don't put this return, I won't be able to read it inside of my template. That's the idea. So let's go back to the add goal. And what is really awesome about the composition API and Vue 3, and I thought was a really smart idea, is the fact that you can actually use it in tandem. Now, obviously, for any prolonged period of use, this probably isn't recommended because it's not the greatest looking code, because you're going to have half in setup, half in composition, like half in the options. And the other thing is that this setup cannot read anything that you have in the other options. So they're not compatible with each other in that sense. They're just compatible in terms of you can have them both in one file. So, but what it's really great for is like slowly migrating away from the options to the composition. So, what's the first thing we're going to do here? Let's do a method. Why don't we do a method? Let's do the add goal method, right? So, in this application, we have weekly goals. And one of the methods that you can do, one of the things you can do is you can add a weekly goal, and it'll be stored on the server, yada yada. I'm not going to go through the actual functionality of adding a weekly goal, but essentially that's what it's doing. It's just adding a weekly goal to the server. So let's take this method, and we're going to put it into setup.vue. Before we do that, actually no, wait, let's do it first. We're going to have to call it something. So it's going to be function add goal. We're going to have to do traditional function calling. You can do arrow functions and all that, but I'm just going to do it like this for now. One of the big differences that we're going to have to account for is the fact that we don't have this in the composition API. This does not exist. And it's a little bit confusing because I'm going to say like this does not exist. What is this? This is that, all that stuff. But essentially the context of this does not exist inside the composition API. And in my opinion, that's probably one of the biggest benefits to readability of code. I don't like this. I don't like this in mostly anything that I use because it gets confusing once you start nesting and you start using selves and this, and when does this refer to itself rather than the parent component and stuff like that. It just gets stupid, really. Like, especially when you're debugging and you can't really debug this sometimes. It's really dumb. And I know for myself, I've tripped up on this many, many times. But what that means is that we're going to have to kind of deliberately import anything that we use inside of this. So for instance, any store variables, which is the Vuex store, and any routing that we have to do, which is the Vue router, we're going to have to import deliberately outside of the export, outside of the main setup, right? So first thing we're going to do is actually import the store. And how we do that is store like that, right? And then instead of using this $store, it's just really going to be store. So anywhere where we have this $store, I'm actually going to change that to just store. And that should solve any sort of issues there. And what's next here? What else do we have? We have this here, so this .goal. So we're going to need some variables that we create. And these variables, I believe, are all represented here. So this kind of stuff is going to all have to be reactive. We have a goal, we have user goals, we have user, we have max character count, and everything here, I believe, is reactive inside of our template, which means that I'm going to have to kind of make it very deliberately reactive. And I'll tell you what that means. It's not as easy as just putting in a data variable at this point. What we have to do now is actually import some functionality from Vue. Yes, exactly, Ethan. It's there's like 4 different ways you can call it inside of the composition API, but it's not inherently available like it is inside in the option API. It's not available in the this variable, so it's not technically inside of the scope of the application. So that's why you have to very deliberately import it in so that you can use it. But again, it still carries on the same functionality. As soon as you import it, it's the same as you were even before that. So it's not a huge deal when you think about it. Whenever you use the store, you just put this import statement up here, and you're good to go. But the other thing that we have to do is we have to import some functionality from Vue. One of them is called ref from Vue. All kind of simple syntax there. I believe it's ref. Let me just quickly, yeah, it's ref. Double check that. Again, I've only done this a couple times, so I'm going to have to definitely refer to some of the code, some of the documentation. So bear with me there. But what this allows me to do when I have ref is, again, to define my reactive variables, the ones that are actually going to change with the code. I can define other variables that aren't going to change without using that ref property. But if I want to have a variable that is going to be changing with Vue, like that's going to be changing with the user input or over time or whatever, and I want Vue to know that it's going to be changing so it actually adapts to it, I'm going to have to call it a ref. So how that looks is this. So up here, we're going to declare our variables, and they're going to match these, right? So it's going to be let goal equal ref and whatever the default variable for goal is, which is just this, right? And it's going to be the same thing for all the other variables. Let user goals equal ref. And again, the ref is referring to the fact that it's going to change. That's all it's referring to. So just please, like that's it's a little bit weird that they use ref. Maybe they could have used some other terminology for that, but regardless, that's just what it is. Ref. And what do we have here? It's just an empty object. Kind of, yes. Use state equals use ref. Yeah, exactly. And then max character count is equal to ref. And I believe that's whatever I set it to, 240. Okay, so now we've declared our variables. We technically don't need these anymore in the data, and I will remove them at some point, but they're going to match the variables that we need. Now, not only do we have to declare them here and tell them that they're ref, we also have to do the same thing kind of that's done here with the return. We have to tell the setup function that we want these variables to be available not only inside setup, but in our templating syntax as well. So with that, what we're going to have to do, and I don't know if I'll probably do this all right now while I have it. So one sec. Yeah, let's return. And again, once I return them, they're going to be fully available just like they are. User goals. It's the other one, user, just like they are with the option API. Max character count. Okay, so I have put them inside of return, which means they're now accessible outside of the setup. And I've also declared them the proper way, telling them that they will change, telling Vue that to look for the change and make sure that you actually update it when it does change. So that's done. Now what we have to do is remove all the thises, right? So for that, we have to figure out what the this is. So this goal, we're good there. We can just remove that because we've just declared it here. So we don't have to worry about calling this or anything like that. But with this .base URL, that we didn't actually declare here. So where is it going to get that from? That's probably a computed variable. Let's take a look. Where's the base URL? Yep, so that's a computed variable. So this is a good example of how to bring in a computed variable. So let's take a look at that, right? So base URL, first thing we're going to have to do is actually bring in the computed method from Vue. Because again, this is kind of how it saves on space and saves on package size. It doesn't build the entire Vue platform if you're not using certain things in Vue. So this is a good way of it. Like you could import all of Vue and use like Vue dot whatever. But that's not suggested. Just import whatever you need, because in some components you're not going to need to compute it, in some components you're not going to need to mount it and stuff like that. So now that I've imported computed, we can take a look and actually bring in that computed variable. And I like to do my computeds, the ones that are actually reactive and the ones that I need before everything, right after the variable declaration. So let's do that here. So with that being said, let's go const base URL, because it's not going to change. We know that. And I believe, honestly, I need to read up on constant lets a little bit, but I've seen some of these be used as const as well. To me, it doesn't make sense because these are meant to change. Well, this one actually is not meant to change, so I can easily make this a const. And in fact, this one is so not meant to change that I don't have to even call it a ref. It's just a constant variable. So we can keep it there. Little const. All right, Evan. A little bit of const base right now. I gotcha. So for the const base URL, we want this to be a computed variable, right? So how that works is, let's go back here, because I've already done one computed variable right here. We actually have it, put it right into a property like this. So I'm just going to copy this over here. So again, we're using computed, which we've just imported right here. And the computed actual function is very similar to how we did it down here, right? So it's the exact same thing, but I can actually take this from here and copy it. We're not going to be using this or $store, because that's not how the composition API works. So let's take a look. Instead of this, we're going to do this, and that's it. That's going to give us the base URL so that we can use the base URL instead of this .base URL. Bam. Dot value to read or write or wrapped comment. Interesting. Must use dot value to read or write the value wrapped by computed. Interesting. What did I do wrong here? Ethan, this code is not all, like, the updated code obviously isn't already on it, but it's already on a repo, and I can actually link that repo here. This is the weekly growth goals application. I built it fully transparently, the front end and the back end, so you can take a look at it right now. Let me just post it in the chat. So that's the front end. You can take a look at all the functionality there. I don't have any readmes, so I will be adding a readme soon. That's why I haven't kind of advertised it. But yeah, let me know if you have any trouble running it. It's a little bit different because I'm using Vite, but in a sense, it's the same. It's npm install and then npm run dev instead of run serve if you want to run the server. Just a heads up. But yeah, this is fully available. Everyone can kind of take a look, do whatever the heck they want inside of it, and let me know if you want to add any pull requests or anything like that. So there's something here that is not working. This is not something I've run into. So let's take a look at what I did in the add goal or in the app.view to make it work. I did do that. So I think I do have to like do something like that. But I just want to double check. So view computed composition read property computed. Let's take a look at how the computeds are used. Computed properties. We don't want it to. Let's see. Dot value. No. See, I've never had this issue before with the option API, but I believe there is a little bit of a difference between the option and the composition API in terms of using computed properties. I swear I kind of, I remember in the back of my head. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It does not need to be computed because this is definitely not something that changes. Yep. Done. Thanks, Nerdism. So we don't have to worry about that. I do want to do a computed at some point just to figure out what that is, but regardless, we'll need to do that. This definitely needs to be computed, so we'll do that later. The max character count. So what we're doing here now, we got the base URL. We're using the base URL. Any other this is yes. So we have another this here. We can get rid of that. This.user.id, we can get rid of that. Now user is a empty thing. What is it asking for? To read a value, to read the value ref by ref. Yeah, exactly. So this is where it gets a little bit hairy again. Like we do need to put a value here to be able to read it, unfortunately. And I'll have to figure out how to do that. I remember this being a thing when I was looking into the composition API. But regardless, I might not need to do, the user might also not need to be a ref, because I don't know if he changes, but we'll see. Give me a second. Give me a second to wrap my head around this old code, and I will get there. So in a mounted, okay, so I definitely don't need it to be, there. So I can do the same thing kind of like I did just now. So the user does not have to be, can also be a const, and does not have to be a computer property or anything like that. Also doesn't really need to be on mounted as well. Let me just put that down right under here. Okay, getting there. Slowly but surely. Okay, so where we've got the user ID, no error there, everything there. Any other thises? Yes, we have this.goal. So again, this will, boom. Goal is that. And this.user goal is that. Okay. That's good to see. Anything else that I see that could be an issue here? So far, no. I think this all looks good, honestly. So we have a function, we have everything that it needs to do, so we're good there. So that means our methods, technically, are done. So let's get rid of them. And this is kind of how I do it. I just go piece by piece, get rid of it. Since it's already all checked into Git and all that, I don't have to worry about, keeping it or commenting it. I could just revert a thing. Can change during render, it should be wrapped with a computed. Am I understanding that correctly? Yes, exactly. So for instance, Nerdism's asking when to use a computed property. This is something that, like, if it's changed after render, if a value can be changed after render. So if a user can do something that will change a value of an external variable or something like that, a computer property will automatically update rather than a regular property which would not, if that makes sense. And it'll update live in terms of the template and in terms of the functions that you use it in. Yeah. So theoretically in setup, probably not super important, but in a function, because it can change, you do sometimes have to use computeds. And in terms of a template, that's where you use the computed properties the most, because if, for instance, you're waiting on a response from an API call from a different component from somewhere in the store, the computed property will automatically update the response when the response comes in. And then that response can then be displayed inside of your template automatically if you're using a computed property. Yeah, so it is a really cool functionality. It can obviously be done in different ways, but Vue kind of has this built in, so that's what I've been using a lot for many different things that I really didn't need to. Okay, so what else do we got here? So we've removed the method. We got that there. We've declared all the variables. That's great. What else do we need to do? We've got the mounted property. So we can do the mounted. So let's take a look at that on mounted. So it's a little bit different. Again, in the composition API, you kind of do an on mounted instead of just mounted, or instead of just whatever. Instead of the option mounted. And with the mounted, What I also like to do is I like to make a function now. So I've got the function add goal, and I'm going to have a function called init. And this is what's actually going to run in the mounted variable. So if we go down here, mounted, let's grab what's in init, what's going to be in init, put it in, let's format it. And then let's again do the exact same thing that we kind of did. So here, I'm wondering how this is going to work. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually using the refs, finding goal input, and putting a focus on it. I'm not sure how this works inside of view 3. So this is going to be my first kind of hiccup. How do refs work in terms of actually like a ref is something that refers directly to an HTML element so that I can do simple things like a focus, right? You could technically do, document.getElement by ID, but view 2 at least had like a thing called refs, which was kind of a dynamic part of view and was easily utilized without having to do a document.getElement by ID. I could still go back to do that. Yeah, view Nux 3. I'm also excited for Nux 3 because I want to build a static site template with Nux 3, with Nux in general, so that my future sites that we build for clients are going to be Nux driven, probably with the Strapi backend. And that should make my development pretty quick, actually, rather than using something like WordPress or something. That's the idea that I had for clients. But let's take a look at refs. So how do the refs work inside of view 3? That I'm not sure. Refs. Okay, ref is that. Unref to ref. I'm just looking for how you can tie a ref to. Yeah, this isn't what I want. To a HTML element using the setup function. And I'm not sure if it's going to be too easy, that's for sure. So the other thing I can do is just figure out how to do like a focus in a different way. Focus. Accessibility, focus indicators. Yes, it's actually not a bad idea. Taking a look at the focus indicators using accessibility. Oh, template refs. Here we go. So as you can see here, this is what I was using before. So I was using a template ref, and then in the methods or whatever, I was using just this $refs, and you're good to go. Are we looking at the same thing? Yeah, we're looking at the same thing. Cool. But you were looking at using with JSX. All right, let me take a look at that. Nerdism usage for v4 setup. Here we go. So how does it work? Ref, L, if L, whatever. And how does that tie in? Just regular. Okay, ref root, setup root is equal to ref null. Interesting. The DOM element will be assigned to the ref after initial render. Ooh, okay. So this is completely different, but it makes sense. So again, a ref then is treated the same as a regular ref that we've already imported. You can assign a ref right to an HTML element. So we can do that. And then that ref will be automatically assigned here. During the setup, it'll be automatically assigned to this HTML element that we can do whatever the heck we want with. Interesting. Yeah, and then it'll like the dot value will be literally that. That actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you, Nerdism, for finding that real quick for me. And let's fix that right now. So what we need to do here, what's the ref going to be called? It's going to be called, it's going to be called text area. So let's do const, const text area ref. is equal to ref null, and then what's the ref actually called before? Goal input. So we're looking for this ref, which is just up here. And actually, you know what? Let's keep it as goal input just to be consistent. Goal input, right? So that automatically puts goal input into this ref, into this variable, which means what I can do now is I can literally just go like that, goal input and dot value. I don't need to read it. I need to do something with it. Must be wrapped by a ref. To read or write the value wrapped by a ref. So how do I actually access it and do something with the ref? That is the question. So I am curious because I don't want to read the value. I want to, I think the var name and the ref name need to be the same. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Nerdism. That's correct. It's a little bit janky. It is a little bit janky. But hopefully once I get the hang of it, it shouldn't be too bad. So my worry is, again, that now it's just giving me the value of the div, which I don't need. I need the actual div itself, not the value. So that's the question. I don't think it'll give me any answers that I need, but regardless. All right, let's think here. So if we've got the value of ref, should be the div itself, exactly. Goal input, like this should be the div itself, and then this should technically work. So you know what? This honestly might be a incorrect lint. So I'm just gonna leave it and see what happens. And then I'll fix the linting later because I've been having a big battle with linting lately anyway, so it's fine. Okay. So we want that, the user to be put into the store from the store, which I've already done, haven't I? User, yeah, I've already done it up here. So I actually don't need to do this anymore. It's already done up here. And then what we need to do is the base URL doesn't need to be there, and this .user goals doesn't need to be there. Okay. So theoretically, that's it. That's all I have to do for the init function. Yeah, exactly. I'll try that. But I think the dot value is actually referring to the inner HTML, not anything else. So I don't think it'll work, but I will try it if it doesn't. Okay, so I think we're done with the mounted. One thing I actually have not figured out is how to declare a component in the composition API. Everything that I found is actually like leave it as this outside of a setup. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. Like this is the last kind of my last step. The other thing I could do is I could technically declare it as a global component, but I don't want to do that. There's no reason to. Even though I do import it a couple times. This out of all the components, this actually could be one that's declared global. So is there anything here? So current character count is the only thing kind of left, I think. We don't need any of this data. That's all done. We've declared it and exported it here, up here, right? So the only thing that's really left is the current character count, I believe, and the reverse user goals. So two things. So we've already done the base URL. We've already done the current user. Don't have to worry about those. We just have to do these two computed properties. And the reason that these are great computed properties is the fact that for this one, it's constantly counting the length of the amount of characters inside of this .goal. And every time this .goal changes, it'll update the current character count. So I can use that in like a Twitter sense to, you know, populate a field that shows how many characters you've already typed into the text box. And that's a great use for a computer property. The next great use for a computer property is if you need to do any manipulation to the data as it comes in. So if this .user goals changes, what we want to do is we want to reverse it because we want to show the oldest goals first, if that makes sense. Right now, through my API, they come in as newest goals, like newest goal first. I want to show the oldest goal first and newest goal second, so I use the reverse. The reason I slice here is because we want to make a completely separate array from this .user goals, so not to confuse the actual user goals, because it's a constantly changing variable. So these are the two things that I'm going to have to do with computed. I'm just going to actually take them. I'm going to manipulate it, but it's fine. I'm going to take them and put them here. And we already have computed. We already have onMounted, and I actually have not finished onMounted. I should actually finish that. Let me jump to that right now. And onMounted init, and that's it. Good to go. Add goal, function init. Oh, right. Everything's kind of screwed up with this because of the computed properties. That's fine. We're going to get that sorted out real quick. So for the computed properties, what we want to do is actually, let's do const, because apparently computed properties can be done as a const for whatever reason. Is equal to computed, and there you can kind of do a arrow function into whatever you need to do here. Control X. Boom. And then same thing we're going to do with current character count. Const current character count is equal to computed. Yeah, they do have a composition API. It's a plugin, right, Nerdism? You can actually download, like install it, and use the composition API right in it. I remember that from when they first like announced it. They're like, hey, you can even try it out. Yeah, that's cool. That is kind of cool. Boom. These can go away. That should fix a bunch of stuff. We can do .value, that's fine. And we can do .value, that's perfectly fine. And then what we need to do is export out a couple things. So add goal, we have declared it here, but it's not currently accessible in the template. So what we need to do is do the same exact thing that we did to the variables and add them to our list of returns. And not only that, we have to add our computed properties that we want to show inside of our template, which is both of them. So reverse user goals and current character count. Both of those are going to be out. Okay. So now, theoretically, we have converted almost everything to the composition API. We technically don't need this name, but I'll leave it there for now. We can call it something else or whatever, but everything else is there. So from top to bottom, we kind of have our declarations of variables. That makes sense. We have our initialization function for the component. We have just a regular function that we're going to be using inside of our template, which is just like, going to be activated on an event, on a click event. And then we have our initialization of the init function. So this is saying that on mounted, so on the mounted lifecycle event, run the init function, which I have declared up here. And then what we have to do is return all the variables that we're going to be using inside of our template. So I can actually go through and make sure that I am using all of these to make sure that I'm not returning anything that's gratuitous. And maybe I will do that. And yeah, so theoretically this should work. The only thing I'm worried about is really this goal input.focus, because that's something that I've just never done before. The reason that we have props here, and I'm not sure if you absolutely need to have props, which I don't think you do actually, I'm going to get rid of them. That's for actually loading the props in from if there's any props in the component. I don't have any props, so I don't actually need it. Hey, thanks for following GoBodat. Appreciate it. Okay, so we've saved this. Now let's actually check out the code. npm run dev. Now, unfortunately, I didn't actually do, oops, sorry. Vite cd Vite frontend npm run dev. I didn't do a comparison of the functionality, but I can actually show you what it's supposed to do on the on the currently deployed site. And then we'll open up the non-deployed version, the one that we just changed, and make sure that it works. So this is the currently deployed site. This is not something that we just changed. I just want to kind of give you a baseline of how the functionality is supposed to work to make sure that everything is working right. So when I click add goal, I'm already logged in, and I click add goal, it should focus onto this text area. It should display all my goals in a descending fashion, right? And then when I type, it should automatically update the character count. And when I finish typing, let me just quickly copy pasta that. It should only let me type 240 characters. I can't type anymore. So that's essentially it. And then once I actually type, finish this live stream that we are doing right now, and add it, it should actually add it, and then it should be displayed here. So that's the basic functionality of the add goal component. So let's actually see if anything has changed. The ideal thing is nothing has changed and everything works perfectly, but I have a feeling that there's going to be some things that we'll have to adjust, just like with everything in programming. It'll never work the first time you do it. So how do we do that? We'll open up the local host. In fact, actually, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to stop this. One awesome thing about Vite is that it starts the dev server extremely quickly. It's like so much faster than Webpack in that sense. And what I'm going to do is go to package.json just to get the debugger attached to it. This is a little bit of the easy way for me to do it. Done. It's opening up. It takes a little bit longer on initial load for Vite, but once it loads, it's fast. And we'll see how the functionality works once it actually loads. Okay, it's loading. Let's full screen it. So again, I'm logged in, completely different database. Obviously, this is my dev environment. So if I click add goal, okay, I don't have any goals here, so that wasn't there. This 240 max works. Let's see if there's any errors, because that's going to be the first indication of something being wrong. There is an error. So goal input.focus is not a function. So we know that that ref that we tried to do did not work. So one thing that I do want to do is I want to see what's actually inside of that goal input, right? So what I'm going to do right now is actually put a debugger here. This is kind of a new debugging solution that I found works really well with the new view, because the console debugging isn't as good. So with the debugger there, and if I hit save, and I go back to the website and I refresh, it should hit the debugger, and I should have access to the information that I need. So what do we get here? So we get value here. So what's the value here? So the value really is just set value, but is it the actual component? That's my question. Maybe. I'm not sure. Doesn't really look like it's the actual component though. Is ref true? So really we don't get what we need to get. We need to actually, instead of getting the value of the component, we need to get the actual component. So from my understanding, they're probably wanting us to just use a document.getElement by ID. That's my guess. I'm just gonna give a guess of that, and I'm gonna try to do that. So, which means let's hit the play button so that it's not held in limbo forever. We know that that doesn't work. So now, instead of goal input.focus, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to just store goal input into a different variable. And I actually don't need this anymore. So const goal input is equal to document dot get element. It's interesting that it's not giving me the element by ID. It's weird that it's not giving me the autocomplete, which makes me think that I spelled something wrong. No, that's fine. Document.getElement by ID, and then it's going to be goal input. Okay. I'll try it first. I'll try it first, nerdism. Oops. Let me just undo everything back, okay? And then you're saying just put dot value. This is going to do the same thing as you're doing. This just because this runs in the onMounted. So let me try that. And let me just get rid of this debugger and see if it'll just, work magically. Not that. Don't need that. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, it's looking like, yeah, dot focus of no, it can't read the property. So it's the same error. Console dot focus of null cannot read the property. It's not able to focus for whatever reason, and that's fine. And that is fine. Again, I think it's more to do with the fact that it's interesting that this is using an older at goal. So this is the problem with the debugger with Vite. It's just not as good yet. I've heard that they are working on it, so I'm hoping that they get it done, but it's just not as good. So add goal. Yeah. Function init. Yeah, so it's just not going to work there. I think that's the problem. And that's okay. Vite Nuxt is very slow? Interesting. I haven't used Vite with Nuxt, but I definitely haven't had the issue. Try it with an arrow function. I know that can mess with the scope, and I get the feeling the scope is important with the composition API. Okay, I'll try it. But I don't think it's going to work. So goal input is equal to ref, and then onMounted. So what do you want me to do? So instead of init onMounted, because you can only have one onMounted, I believe. onMounted function. So I can do, inside of onMounted, actually, I can do, boom, that, and then I can do what you're saying. Right. So I can do that, and then I can do init if you want, like that. And then just comment that out. It's done. Then refresh. And yeah, it's not focusing on it. And it's giving me the same error. Nah, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. Let's try to do the document.getElement by ID. That might work. Yeah, they sometimes fail you in that sense because they don't know exactly what you want to do with the ref. But really, like, it doesn't make sense for them to give us a ref to the document value because it's so easy to get that value just by using a regular view variable. So I don't really understand the reasoning for ref, to be honest, right now. Like that, it's confusing me a little bit. Without actually giving us access to the element, which is what we want, I don't get the problem. I don't get the use for ref, but whatever, it's fine. So this might work, this might not. The problem I had with it before is that it was actually targeting the virtual DOM element rather than the real element. So when I was doing document.getElement by ID, it actually wasn't working initially. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But either way, let's try it out. There's nothing wrong with trying it out. So I'm just going to get rid of this value for now. And then I'm also going to I'll comment this out for now, because maybe there will be a way to do it that we don't know. So const goal input is equal to document.getElement by ID goal input, and then goal input.focus. Technically, that should do it. Clear console. Let's take a look at that. Refresh. And same problem. Oh, okay, so it's not... Oh, okay, sorry, it's... I should have got rid of that. Console... I just want to see if it's actually... I'm pretty sure that the problem is now going to be the fact that it's not going to detect the real element. It's going to try to do it on the virtual DOM element. And that's, I think, exactly what's happening. Document is not defined. Oh, I spelled document wrong. Oh, that's dumb. Look at that document. Oh, add it to the return. Okay, I'll try that in a second. So document, let's try that first. Clear console. Give me a second here. And then refresh this. Okay, so it's not working. Cannot read property of user of undefined. Interesting. Now it's giving me another error. What are you talking about with the user of undefined? Okay, so that's a different error that we weren't getting before that I'll have to solve. But yeah, let's try that return. I'm curious. What is it? What are we calling it? Because I don't think this is going to work. Goal input. Goal input, like that. Oh, that worked. That worked, Nerdism, I think. Wait, no, maybe not. Oh, maybe not. Thought it worked. One sec. What did I do to make it work? Because it did look like it did work for a second there. Save. Refresh. I think it's using an older build here. One sec. Let me restart the server. Sometimes there's a caching issue in the servers. Got to know that. Let's open this up. And yep. Got to wait a little bit for the invite initialization. Then you got to go to my goals. Nope, not my goals. Add goal. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. I thought it worked, but it didn't work. Maybe it was this that worked, but who knows? Let's just quickly... Oh, now everything's broken. Good. That's what we like to see. The ideal thing to see is that everything is broken. Goal input is not defined. Okay. All right. Let's go from a fresh environment. Yeah. Dot value dot focus. Okay, let's get that up and running. Let's see what happens here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that goal. Oh, It did it. Nerdism, it did it. I think that was it. Okay, so let's do another test here for a sec, just to make sure. Let's go back to home. Apparently, I have everything broken. Okay, so there's another issue. Let's solve that other issue now. It looks like it is working, so that's good. But there's that user issue that I was talking about. So I'm getting this error, and actually I can actually see all those errors inside of my debug console, I believe, or I should be able to. Maybe output problems? No. Okay, whatever. It should be in the debug console, but for some reason it isn't. Anyway, errors right here. So something wrong with the user somewhere. All right. Let's take a look at where the user could be wrong. So users, it possibly could be this that's tripping it up, because perhaps it's not initialized until it's initialized. So I could potentially have to do this inside of the init. Just return them in the setup. So like literally take the weekly goal and return it in the setup. Like weekly goal, like that, you mean? Because it's already declared here. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure that there's no breakpoints. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I'll try it. I'll try that. Okay, so with the user, I mean, it should. Where's this get user? Where's the user? Is the user updated anytime? User goals. No, user's not updated here. Init. Weekly goals. User. This dot. Oh, here we go. Can't have a this. It's got to be user. Clear log. Okay, very interested to see why navigation isn't working right now. Just give it a quick refresh. Okay, okay. My goals, back home. Okay, that works. Back here. Okay, that works. All right. I think that was it. I think that was the issue. Everything works here. Let's test goal creation real quick. That's the last thing that we kind of haven't tested yet. Okay, that does not work. All right, so that could be because we don't have the server started. Easy peasy. Terminal. Apparently we do. Got a bad request. Interesting. So we do have the server started. The server's working fine. Let's log out and log back in to confirm. Yeah, that works fine. Test user goal creation. Okay, bad request. Yeah, so it's obviously sending the wrong things, which is fine. We can figure out why it's sending the wrong things. That's not an issue. Let's take a look. When we're adding a goal, what are we getting? Let's examine the payload first. Debugger, save. Let's go back. Test user goal creation. Let's make sure that the payload is correct. So payload. We've got encouraged users. We've got a user. That looks good. We've got a weekly goal. That looks fine. So that's good. Is Axios perhaps not have the correct header on it? Should. It should have the correct header. Axios.defaults.headers. Yeah, has the right authorization bearer token. That's all good. Base URL? Nope, that's fine. Weekly goals, payload. Maybe a computer around get user. Nah, it should be fine. Because the user's, again, coming like statically from the... one sec. Let's just take a look quickly at the user. Not... Yeah, the user is test my. It looks like the user's correct. Target. There he is. There I am. Authenticated. Like that's all good. Yeah, that's the Strapi dev port. I thought it was pretty clever. Okay, so what are we missing here? Getter.get user. That's fine. That's fine. Goal is fine. Yeah, strange. And then, I mean, I can't put breakpoints in here right now yet, but then it just does just gives a 400 error. That is interesting. I mean, let me quickly take a look at the backend. Localhost 1337 admin. Let's take a look here. That's all good. It's a good user. Good user. It's confirmed. Confirmed. That's fine. Yeah. They're both perfectly fine users. But for some reason, the goal is not adding. Check the second request. Oh, I see what you're saying. Debugger. Sure. Although I don't think it gets there. I think it just goes here. But yeah, let's take a look real quick. Test user goal. So it gets to the first request. And then if I press play, I believe, yeah, it doesn't get to that second one. Because it's in the then. It just goes into here, into the error. And the error says I just have a bad request. I'm obviously just not sending the goal correctly. Like it's expecting it a little bit differently. I believe that's what the 400 request is saying, but let me just double check that. For error 400, and I can kind of do that live. It means bad request means the request the client made is incorrect or corrupt. Yeah, so it just means that I'm not sending it the way that it's wanting to receive it. So we need to figure out why, like it to me it looks fine. Oh, good call. Network weekly goals validation error. Right, so data is here. Errors weekly goal must be a string type, but the final value is, oh, okay. Oh, you know what? It's that value issue. It's not goal, it's goal.value. Boom. Good call, nerdism. Good call. That'll work. Let's get rid of this debugger. I don't think we'll need it. The only thing is, I wonder if I have to set. Anyway, we'll figure that out. Let's do it one step at a time here. Test weekly goal creation. Play. Okay. Let's see the error here, and then let's press play. Okay. Okay, so it's still giving me an error, but now it's probably a different one, hopefully. Console. No error. But I think the issue is that I have to actually set it differently. So if I go back here, Yeah, so test it. Like, so that's fine. And then if I go back here, so my user goals are the things that aren't showing correctly. So that's another thing I have to fix. Because right now, since I have created a goal, test mic, when I go into add goal, it should actually show me that goal, which it isn't. But again, we should be able to fix that somehow. So where's that computed property? So goal.value, user goals.value.slice, reversed user goals. So this is what's not showing right now. So I am going to change these to a let, just in case that's the issue. I don't think it is. And value, user goals.value.slice. Yes, all that is correct here. First user goals, okay. Okay, don't see it quite yet. Give me a second here. I'm just going to put it over here for a second while I'm figuring this out. And, okay, what are we doing here? So, we have the user goals, the reversed user goals not showing up. So we need to figure out why that is. Is it because of this value? And is the current character count working? Yes, the current character count is working. So we know that this part works fine. But user goals is not working fine. And let's just check to make sure where I'm setting the user goals. So user goals here is being set to res.data. I wonder if I have to set it. Like, does it have a particular way for me to set it without just making an equal sign? That might be the issue. So let's take a look at the ref implementation. So refs, great. Refs worked. I'm happy with that. Template refs. And this is what I actually used, right? Yeah. Template refs, components in depth. Application, where's the composition API? And let's just search for ref. Okay. So how do I set a value? Okay, so you just put literally .value set. Okay, you don't have to put like a setter. No problem. So user goals .value. Yep, that's it. Boom. I changed it and it automatically did that. So let's test another user goal creation. Actually, before I do that, I believe I have this somewhere else. Yeah, right here. .value. Okay. Testing another user goal to see if it shows up below after creation. It does not. Okay, good. That's what we want to see. User goals.value. What's going on? We're almost there. We are definitely almost there. Kind of going through one thing at a time. So we went through, and the .then response user goals.value is equal to response.data. That should have worked. This technically should also, yeah, .value. Yeah, that should work. Oh, actually, no, it might have worked. Okay, let's try again. Testing goals creation 3. No. Okay, there we go. It did work. And it clears the goal here, everything. Okay. I think, again, we have fully migrated the add goal component. And it looks like, Nerdism, you are correct. Weekly goal here works perfectly fine, so I can get rid of that. And I don't need this name. That's useless. I think this is fully converted to Vue 3, to the composition API. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we got it. So yeah, so that's kind of the process. And again, I did say I was going to stumble here and there, and we got through it, which is good. The idea is here, now that this component has gotten larger, theoretically I could actually export out these two functions and just import them in just like I've imported the store and all that. And then really this will make this component super clean. And it can even be in kind of like the same folder. So you can have like a folder with the, the .view file and the .js files. And that will make the component extremely clean and reusable, because you can just export, like, take that folder or make it a plugin, take that plugin or folder and put it into whatever project you want, and it'll have all the functionality built in because it's all going to be contained and localized to that folder with the actual templating, the view structure, and the lifecycle events. Let's see, try the init without the error. I wonder if that will break it or if it matters at all. Right, okay, so you want to, sure. I think it should be fine, but let me try that. That's fine. Don't need the arrow. You're good to go, Nerdism. You can just do it like that. Super simple. But yeah, lots of stuff covered. I don't want to do it too much longer. I got to go have dinner soon. Got to go to the store and all that. But thanks for sticking around. If anyone has any more questions, throw them in the chat right now. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Once you get the hang of it, I think it gets really good. It just takes a second longer. Like, it takes a little bit longer for me to think about it because I'm so used to the option API. So it's just going to take me a little bit of time to kind of get used to it. I like Nuxt. I've used Nuxt a couple times, Ethan. And I think it's a great static site generator and server-side renderer. So it's something that I am definitely 100% going to use in the future for client projects. I just want to create, like, one of my next things I'll be doing is actually creating a full template, or like a scaffold essentially, with a Nuxt built in with a Strapi backend, so that I can create a whole CMS front end, back end application for clients, and potentially Dockerize it in a container so that I can just store it like on a droplet, and it'll be super cheap to host. That's kind of my idea right now for next client projects, but I got to do some setup and some work on it. But yeah, again, thanks everyone for stopping by and chilling with me during this. This was a little bit more of a structured stream where we were actually trying to get something accomplished, learn some stuff between us and everyone else out there. Thanks, Nerdism, again, for helping me out in a few of the areas that we went through. Definitely appreciate the help and the conversation. So yes, that's another thing with the composition API that I've heard a lot is it makes TypeScript work 100% across Vue, whereas the option API has some issues with some of the lifecycle options with TypeScript specifically. So if you want to use Vue with TypeScript, you have to use the composition API if you want to use it across the board. Otherwise, you're going to run into errors here and there and stuff like that. It's still usable, but whatever. Regardless, TypeScript is something that I'm going to learn on another day. It's something I do want to 100% take a look at, and I'll be doing an episode on the HTML Things podcast on it. So again, just to do some quick self-plugs, as I usually do at the end of the stream, come join our server, the Discord server. I believe all you guys that are chatting are already in it, but you can come join it here. I can kind of show, you can just kind of search for HTML Things Discord. HTML Things, someone's calling me, all the things Discord. It'll pop up here. I'll get you this chat. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Nerdism. We might have maybe I'll schedule a working session with you, and we can go through TypeScript together. That'd be cool. We can even do like a stream together if you want. There's that. There's the podcast. That's something that we do every week. So check that out. Again, I'm just gonna throw it in there. Throw it in the chat if you guys want it. But yeah, again, thanks everyone. Yes, Ethan, Spotify. We have it on all platforms, including Spotify. I can just show you real quick how to get to it on Spotify if you want to take a look. HTML, all the things. There it is. That's what it looks like. All the latest episodes are there. Everything is there. You can easily listen to everything. We just had a developer on that we've kind of caught up with every little while. So we've kind of gone through this developer journey with him. So that's a cool episode, and talked about the weekly growth goals application that we just kind of worked on. And last episode this was a pretty big episode where we talk about the core HTML, CSS, JS. So if you want to take a listen, check it out. All right. Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. It was an awesome stream. Goodbye.